answer. That is kind of not the right recipe, I guess, to go against Alabama. We see in the past that Nick Saban struggles against teams that have a mobile quarterback, and even though Puma Pass is a good athlete, he's a pocket passer in Bobby Petrino's offense, which to me just doesn't seem like it's a good mix. So, and also you mentioned LSU and Miami. I think this game here is bigger for LSU. Obviously, if Miami wants to be taken serious as a serious contender in the ACC and a serious contender to go against Clemson, they need this game. But I think, to me, it's bigger for LSU because of the fate of Ed Orgeron, basically, down at LSU. They hire Coach O a couple years ago to be the head coach. He's about like what Harbaugh's doing, 7-5, 8-4 win seasons. He's had some really great running back talent that he loosed it to the NFL. He's had Darius Geis last year and Leonard Fournette the year before. But this is I know they're bringing in a brand new quarterback this year. He looks real promising. This is a bigger win for LSU, I think.
Well, we'll see what happens. And with a name like Puma Pass, he was destined to be a great quarterback. So we'll follow him throughout the season as well. Well, let's kind of just talk about, it's not too early to talk about the college football playoffs. Should we extend the teams? Well, of course we could, because if we extend it to 6, then we have to extend it to 8, then we have to extend it to 10, and so forth, and the madness continues. I would be in favor of 6, but no more than that. Because we do see teams like Washington get snubbed. And, as we just talked about, Auburn, Washington, playoff elimination really in game 1. The loser will likely be out of the college football race on September 1. Washington could still win its conference, Rick, but it's going to be judged more by the Auburn game than the Pac-12 schedule. And as you mentioned on Wednesday night, not that I necessarily agreed with you, but this is a bigger win for Washington than it would be for Auburn.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's a much bigger win for Washington than it is Auburn. Auburn has to schedule the rest of the year to make up for a loss, against Washington. But Washington does not have the schedule, other than playing against Stanford later this year, to make up for a loss. And then when it comes selection time for the committee to really take a serious look at them and say, all right, well, who have you really beat? Because you lost to the best team you played against, which is Auburn. And maybe they beat Stanford, but how good is Stanford really going to be when we get there? So, and then they don't have the schedule against the Pac-12, because the Pac-12 is a little down this year. As far as the playoff goes, I think 8 teams is perfect. I don't think it needs to be any more than 8 teams. I think, in the years to come, far into the future, it will probably expand much. They'll find a way to expand it more than 8 teams. I think 8 teams is perfect. You get your 5 Power 5 conferences in. Then you can have a couple of your group of 5 teams, which would have been great for UCF last year. And then you still get a 1 at-large bid, say like a team like Notre Dame, like a 1-loss Notre Dame who's not in any conference whatsoever, something like that. So I think you get your 5 Power 5s, you get a group of 5 team in, you get 1 or 2 at-large bids. That's why I believe 8 teams is perfect. And to accomplish that, they just need to get rid of the conference championship games, which we've seen now. They don't make a difference anyway, because Alabama didn't even make their conference championship game last year, but still got in the playoff.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some other big deciding games. We talked a little bit about the Texas-Oklahoma game, and that's going to decide the Big 12. The winner of the Big 12 will be the one score nail-biter as usual. The only question is, will we get a rematch in the Big 12 there, Rick?
Well, I think the Big 12 this year, I think it's going to come down to West Virginia, Oklahoma. TCU is going to be really good. I think Texas is still a year away under Tom Herman. He's a great coach. He's going to have them going in the right direction. I think they're starting a younger quarterback, so he's still working on a quarterback issue at Texas. I think they're still a year away to be serious contenders in that conference. I think this year is really going to come down to we don't know what Oklahoma's going to look like with Kyler Murray. Baker Mayfield's gone. I mean, he's just as good as an athlete, but we don't know if he's the leader, that Baker Mayfield was. I think it's going to come down more to West Virginia and TCU this year in the Big 12.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this Clemson-South Carolina game. It'll be huge. The Tigers go into rivalry weekend looking to cap a 12-0 regular season, but the Gamecocks are capable of winning the SEC East, which will give them all they can handle in one of the best rivalry games of the weekend. The Tigers have a chance to match South Carolina's 5-game win streak from 2009 to 2013. Sorry.
Yeah, and Will Muschamp did like a terrible job when he was the head coach at Florida, and he got the South Carolina job. I was like, how did he even get another head coaching job? Because he failed so bad at Florida. But since he's been at South Carolina, they've been like a really good team, really good defensive team. They've been putting points up on the scoreboard. So that is actually going to be a really good game to watch this year. But Clemson's going to bring in probably the best defensive line in the country. And, you'll see that all year long. I don't think Clemson will have much trouble with South Carolina when we get to that point, because I think Clemson and Alabama are both going to be in the playoffs. So really, the rest of the country is just playing for 2 playoff spots, which is why we need to expand the playoff, because it's crazy that I think 2 teams are already locked into it. But so that's really it. That could be a game to change that, even if Clemson goes undefeated but lose to South Carolina in that game. I still think they're still in the playoff. That's how crazy it is right now with the 4-team playoff. But it's not a rivalry game yet. I know they're in-state rivals. But until South Carolina gets a little better under Will Muschamp, and they are, I don't think that's really much of a game.
So let's talk a little bit about these coaches that we already know going into game one, hot seats and cool seats, if you will. A lot of people think Jim Harbaugh's seat is cooling off. I don't think so. As Terry mentioned earlier, he does not have the success record. If Notre Dame beats Michigan, that's going to heat up his thing. You mentioned Ed Oregon. Excuse me.
Oregon.
Oregon, sorry.
Cajun Cookie Monster.
Only in his second year, but there again, we're Lane Kiffin watch there for LSU. Of course, Urban Meyer as well. That's the other one that a lot of people are going to be looking at toward the end of the season. Out of those 3, who's most likely to stay? Who's most likely to go?
Well, I think if Lane Kiffin keeps having the success in year 2 here at FAU, somebody be calling his phone to coach their team, next year. I mean, he won't even have 3 seasons at FAU, especially if Urban Meyer, if he's fired after this year, or if he just they just mutually decide to split ways and he becomes the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, which is what I think is probably going to happen after this season. I think Lane Kiffin might be heading up to Ohio State.
Well, here's another coach that, is not on the hot seat at all. In fact, his seat is pretty much frosted over, done, and very cold frost, if you will, because it's a frost joke, and frost is cold. We all know Scott Frost going to do a fantastic job up there in Nebraska. I think that Lincoln, Nebraska is going to get a lot of talk, especially in the Big Ten. I think they got a chance to, have a really good trip to Michigan, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Ohio State. Who made that schedule 8 wins would be a successful season for Scott Frost.
It will. Tom, I was ask you this. We'll just put the over-under at 7.5. Is Scott Frost going to win more than 7.5 games or under?
I think he wins 8 games. Absolutely.
You think he wins 8? I'm thinking they'll probably go 7. I'm going to take the under on them, even though that's great at Nebraska, and it takes 2 or 3 years to a new coaching staff, new coach to come in, all that to come into place. He needs to get his own recruits in. It takes years to build, and fans drive me crazy. And I'm one of these guys too for Notre Dame when they hire a new coach. That the turnaround needs to be immediate, and the national championships need to be won 5 minutes ago. Right after 5 minutes after they hire a new coach, the national championship needs to be won right there. I'm one of those fans too, but it takes 2 or 3 years to actually have success when you bring in a new coaching staff. So I don't think this year or next year is the year for Nebraska, but year 3 under Scott Frost, that's when the Big Ten needs to go on notice.
Hey, Rick, do you remember the issue I was talking with you about prior to the show regarding my laptop and the battery? So what I'm going to try to do is make that conversion. I want to do that while you're on the line. So you got the show until I come back on, okay?
All right, how long is that going to take you? Because
it won't take me long. I just need to do it. So I'm going to make that conversion right now. So go ahead, go.
All right, so when Terry Beard was on earlier with us, he has the Michigan winning 24-17. And, I have issue with that because I actually wrote about this on IUers.com, how Notre Dame can win this game. And it's going to come off the improvement Brandon Wimbush has made during the offseason. Even though they had to replace some pieces off the offensive line, and everybody in the country thinks it's impossible to place Quentin Nelson and Mike McGlinchey off the offensive line. And also replacing Josh Adams, the running back, 1,100-1,400-yard rusher last year. I still think they're going to be able to do it with Jafar Anderson. We're going to see Dexter Williams suit up. I'm not sure if we're going to see him start because he is suspended, or supposed to be suspended, but Brian Kelly said he's going to suit up, but did not say if he's going to play or not. If Dexter Williams plays, that is a game changer for Notre Dame because Dexter Williams will be the fastest player on the field when he's in the game. And we're also going to see Tony Jones Jr. at running back. So Notre Dame potentially is going to have a three-headed monster this year. All have different strengths, all have different weaknesses, and all are going to play in different setups on offense. And they are still led or guarded by a pretty good offensive line, one of the better lines in the country. Notre Dame still has Sam Mustipher up front. You didn't hear about him last year because it's all about McGlinchey and Nelson. But Sam Mustipher is going to be another offensive lineman taken in the first round of the NFL draft. So it's the line that we don't know about yet, unless you're an Irish fan and you're a nerd like me and you read into all this stuff. Notre Dame has three receivers over 6'4". So Wimbush is going to be able to win his 50-50 balls that he didn't win last year. Equanimous St. Brown was a great receiver last year, but he only stands about 6 foot tall. And he's not really your guy that you can just throw the ball up to and hope he goes up and gets it because, your corners are also about 6 foot tall. But with Chase Claypool, Alize Mack, and Miles Boykin being over 6 foot tall, this gives Notre Dame an advantage in the passing game as well. So it comes down to the improvements that Brandon Wimbush has made during the offseason. He lacked confidence last year, especially late in the season. They got drummed. They got the break speed off of him down at Miami, and that was all Wimbush not being able to make a 10-yard pass. So he's going to have to get that out of his head this year because it's going to happen tonight. Because if he can't make 10-yard throws tonight against Michigan, Notre Dame is done. I mean, they're going to be done, and we're going to see it early. So we're going to see what they're going to do, how he's going to react to pressure, the throws he's going to be able to make. Can the offensive line block Michigan up front because Michigan brings in one of the best defensive lines in the country. And I will disagree with Terry Beard because of the home game aspect and everything that's surrounding this game. And you can turn on ESPN College Game Day right now and actually see it's already a party. So Michigan's going to be walking into Notre Dame Stadium already up against that. I think it's going to be a 27-17 win, 2-score game for the Irish. And we're still not having Tom. Tom has still left the show, and I'm trying to break down this Irish game all alone. Where are you at, Tom? I need your talking points. So one game we didn't hit on just yet was actually we did. We hit on Washington and Auburn. I think it's a bigger win for it needs to be a bigger win for Washington. Washington needs this game because they don't have the schedule that I lost train of thought. Auburn has.
And I'm back, Rick.
It is hard to just go on about anything in the world when there's absolutely zero talking point to go off of.
Come on, man! Gotta learn how to go on the fly. The show must come on. It's not like I dropped. It's not like I dropped you off during the racing segment or anything.
Yeah, I would have just hung up on the show.
You got no skin in this game. What'd I miss?
I just broke down my Irish. What's going to happen in the Irish game tonight? Final score.
All right, guys, let's get at you. I appreciate your patience. 9179-8516 is my digits. I had a credundum with my laptop. I left my power cord at the office, and I realized my battery was going dead. So I had to make a switch over to a different device. So it's okay. Hey, let's talk a little bit about Kevin Sumlin. He'll make an instant impact in his new home in